Hello, everyone, and welcome to Next Best Picture's YouTube channel. The time of recording right now is 12:30 p.m. on February 18th, 2025. The BAFTA Awards have wrapped up. We are heading into SAG and Spirit Awards weekend. I'm being joined here by Daniel Howat to talk with me, Matt Neglia, the owner, editor-in-chief of NextBestPicture.com. We're going to be discussing the state of the race right now and where things are at. Just a little brief conversation because I do think there is some level of uncertainty with a few categories, even though BAFTA cleared a few things up. So, Daniel, how are you today?
I'm doing good. Just, less than 2 weeks till Oscar Sunday, so getting down to the wire now.
I mean, when you say down to the wire, voting literally closes this evening at
hmm
8 p.m. So by the time this video goes up, most people will have handed in their ballots already, I imagine. Although I did just speak to one voter earlier this morning who still had not turned in their ballot just yet. A lot of people literally wait until the last minute just to see if something might
Yeah,
happen, you
that's what I
know?
was gonna ask. Because as you're talking to these voters, do they have a real reason for waiting? Like, what are they waiting to see?
You know what it is? A lot of people want to believe that voters are as objective as humanly possible and are not influenced by anything, and that they vote for their favorites no matter what. The reality of the situation is somebody could theoretically murder someone or go on a Twitter spree of hateful tweets, as we saw a couple of weeks ago, and that can just change your overall perception. So, a lot of folks like to hold on until the last minute. Now, somebody will chime in and say, we should be separating art from the artists and just judging the art that's up on the screen. But that's just not the way that people's minds think a lot of the times, you know?
Yeah,
So,
it's people's
everyone's got their
opinions.
way of doing it.
It's people's opinions. That's what it is. This isn't an
Yeah.
objective thing. No matter how much we want to say it's objective, it's not. It's what people like, what people want to reward, or what they don't want to reward. So, I mean, it makes perfect sense, especially in as chaotic of a year as this. I'm
hmm
sure it makes a lot of sense that people would be waiting for maybe another shoe to drop for Amelia Perez or any of these other contenders. So, yeah, not surprising.
And I agree with you that this year has been absolutely chaotic. It is the first year post strike. And so we're seeing definitely that influence, I think, on the season, on the types of nominees that we ended up getting in the end. But it does look like after its wins at Critics' Choice, PGA, and DGA, Honora really does have Best Picture locked up. Literally the only thing that can possibly challenge it is if Conclave, which just won the BAFTA for Best Film, also wins its SAG this Sunday. That's like, and even then, I'm like, well, it looks like it's the front runner for editing. It's definitely winning adapted screenplay. Is there a chance it pulls an Argo and wins Best Picture over Nora? Yes, you cannot say with 100% certainty that Honora would have that locked up, but I still give it the odds-on favorite to walk away with everything. Now, if Sean Baker had lost DGA to Brady Corbet, I would say, okay, things are a little different now. Brady Corbet takes director, Conclave takes picture, Honora maybe gets actress or screenplay or both, and that's your split. But after Nora won DGA, it just seemed like the writing was on the wall that it would take picture then along with it. Right?
Yeah, the only thing that's tripping me up about this is honestly just as weird as this season has been, it feels almost too easy. Like it feels like things have just solidified in Anora's direction very, very quickly.
hmm
Which so not the logical part of my brain totally agrees. There's no real reason to doubt Honora at this point. The non-logical side of my brain is going, this feels too simple. This feels too easy, too simple. Feels like something crazy is going to happen. But I
hmm
mean, as far as predictions go, you're right. Even if Conclave does win SAG, I don't think I would switch to Conclave. I think I would stick with Honora, wouldn't you?
I would. I am very nervous though because Brady Corbet winning Golden Globe and BAFTA isn't something to completely disregard. Historically speaking, when there was splits in the director race, it did tend to lean towards the DGA winner, which is Sean Baker,
Yeah.
and he only has DGA. John M. Chu inexplicably won Critics' Choice, and Corbet picked up Globe and BAFTA. Now, if Corbet had also picked up Critics' Choice, I would say it's a 50-50 toss-up, but we've been in those situations before where Tom Hooper only had DGA. He beats David Fincher. Alejandro Gonzalez Iñárritu has DGA. He beats Richard Linklater.
Mhm.
And those films were the ones to also go on to win Best Picture. So the tide feels like it really has turned towards Anora to win picture director. But now, forget about like SAG predictions at this point, because by the time SAG airs and we know the winners, they might give us an indication of where things are going. But the speeches won't
Mhm.
have any influence on
Yeah.
the voting. The voting will be over. So I really think at this point, you just have to look at the evidence that's in front of your eyes right now. And the major question that we all should just be asking ourselves is what's Honora's win package on Oscar night?
Yeah, right now I've got it for picture. I do have it for director, but I'm facing the same question marks. You know, you really it's tough to predict against DGA. I mean,
Yeah.
they're one of the most reliable guild predictors in the race. So I do have it for picture, director, and screenplay. I'm
Mhm.
holding on to Demi Moore in actress. It really does to me. It was big for Mikey Madison to pick up the BAFTA, but
Mhm.
it really does seem that the momentum in Hollywood is in Demi's direction. It feels very much like Brendan Fraser, just a couple of years ago. Similarly, it was different because Brendan Fraser had lost the Globe. Demi won the
Mhm.
Globe. But otherwise, it's very similar path and similar stories, not exactly the same. So I'm sticking with Demi Moore. And then editing, I'm sticking with Conclave. So really, I've got a Nora for picture, director, screenplay.
Which makes sense and is very, very possible. But what if I told you that there is a chance? I'm not saying it's going to happen. What if I told you there's a chance that Demi Moore also loses SAG? Maybe not even to Mikey. Maybe there is wicked love for Cynthia Erivo because there clearly was wicked love with SAG, right? I'm just throwing a hypothetical out there. So if Demi Moore loses SAG, it doesn't matter who it's to, right?
Hmm.
But that would show that she is truly vulnerable within the industry. And I would say Mikey is likely then to win actress. What if this is Nomadland, where it wins picture, director, and actress?
I think you're right in the scenario you're laying out. I really think Demi Moore is winning SAG. I really,
Mhm.
really do. So that's kind of why I'm like, I don't think that's really what's going to happen. But if she does lose, I think you're right. Then I would probably default to the star of the Best Picture winner being Mikey Madison.
The only thing that gives me a lot of pause here is Adora has a Best Ensemble nomination at SAG. Substance has only the lone nomination for Demi Moore. And this is also the same case with Margaret Qualley at BAFTA. She wasn't there either. So, like, there is. I predicted Mikey to win the BAFTA because Substance wasn't nominated for Best Film. Margaret Qualley wasn't there. It just seemed like the love was there for the Substance, but not as much as Golden Globes and Critics' Choice. And SAG, I'm feeling a very similar way where it just seems like there's more love for Nora than there is to Substance. And I am wondering if that horror biasness will bite more in the ass a little bit. I understand what you mean, though. I definitely think it's tight. I don't think it's
Mhm.
as done of a deal as we thought it was going to be when Moore won both CCA and Globes, and we thought, oh, she's going to sweep and win
Mhm.
all four of the televised awards. Clearly, that's not the case now. But I'm also holding the same logic against Adrian Brody at SAG as well. So, like, I'm not doing a double standard here. I'm saying, like, I'm looking at what did SAG clearly love. They clearly love
Mhm.
Wicked. They
Yeah.
clearly love The Complete Unknown. And they loved Nora to give it Mikey, Yora, and Ensemble. It winning casting at BAFTA just also reinforces that. Like, there's a world where Nora at SAG wins Ensemble, sews up the Best Picture race, like, completely. And Mikey could also come along with that. If that happens, Mikey's definitely winning. But then, like, the thing that I'm so nervous about, even more so than director, because like you said, DGA is just such a hardcore stat, is Honora is really struggling to win those screenplay awards lately.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if that's actually the more vulnerable thing here for it.
I think you're right. And when you look back at the last few years of original screenplay, last 10 years or so, the substance is much more in line with what wins that category. Not every year, but you look at Get Out, promising young woman. It's kind of the bold swings. Well, I mean, you literally have another horror film there with Get Out. It's often, though not always, the most original screenplay that wins original screenplay. That's certainly the substance this year. Honora is very original. It's not like an insult. I just mean it doesn't have as many, never before seen elements like the substance does. I'm over exaggerating, but you know what I mean. So that's I've had the substance in there for a little while. I had switched to Honora as the momentum started to pick up, but yeah, it's really a toss up between the substance and Honora for both actress and screenplay. It's tough. The thing about substance at SAG though is you were talking about not seeing as much support at SAG for the substance. I'm not sure that I understand where you're coming from. That doesn't really give me any pause because the
Hmm.
substance is a two-hander, right? It's
Hmm.
it's not a big ensemble piece. Honora is very much a lead, but it's got such a great ensemble that rounds it out.
Hmm.
And substance doesn't really have that. You got what Dennis Quaid, other than the two leading ladies,
Hmm.
and then supporting actress at SAG was such a weird thing that it's strange that Margaret Qualley missed. It's like unexplainable. I don't know how that happened. It was a very strange thing, and so I'm not really bothered by like I never would have expected it to get an ensemble nomination.
Yeah.
That's why that doesn't really bother me. It doesn't really feel like there's not support for the substance at SAG. It just feels like the sort of movie that it is. It should have gotten two nominations, weirdly only got one, but it is what it is. So I still feel very good about Demi winning there.
Yeah.
But if it is Mikey and Honora wins ensemble, that's a big shift there.
Yeah. I'm just so nervous about screenplay, and Substance is actually not the one that I'm nervous about as much. I am more nervous about A Real Pain than I am the Substance. And I know that sounds
Hmm.
contradictory because A Real Pain's not nominated for Best Picture. But something I can't shake about Real Pain is that all season long, it really has stayed in this race as far as precursor wins are concerned. It won quite a few substantial ones as well from some of the more high profile critics groups over Nora, which I was not expecting. I thought that Sean Baker would run away this season with wins in that category. That didn't turn out to be the case. And then losing out at BAFTA to it. Now you can say, well, A Real Pain takes place in Europe, European sensibilities. But then we also have to remind ourselves the Academy is also highly international now as
Hmm.
well. So, does that also kind of cross over? I do think that the substance, the horror biasness, doesn't hold against it so much in makeup because that's a category that we've
Yeah.
seen can go to any genre, no matter what, and that's totally fine. But in screenplay, the thing that the substance does have is it does have that original concept that we see the original screenplay category tend to reward, but it only having a CCA win. Now, if it had won the BAFTA, I would be so tempted to say the substance is then winning because having a combo of CCA and BAFTA is almost unbeatable. I think it
Hmm.
is unbeatable, actually. Um, the thing
The
that
thing about
yeah, go ahead.
the thing about A Real Pain, you're right. I mean, winning the BAFTA is big, so that's not nothing. I don't want to pretend like that's not important.
Mhm.
But I just can't get over the fact that it doesn't have a picture nomination or a
You know
director
what it
or
does
anything.
have though? You know that voters are watching it
I
because of
agree.
Kieran Culkin. So it's one of those things where maybe it's impervious to the best picture
Man, it's been
poison of
it's been exactly 20 years. It's since a film not nominated for picture,
yeah,
one screenplay, never happened in the expanded era.
right.
I do feel like, look, stats like that and runs like that break all the time. So it's not like it can't happen,
Yeah.
but it makes a lot of sense why it wouldn't. When you have 10 films nominated for Best Picture, it
Hmm.
makes perfect sense that, one of them would win Best Screenplay. Um,
I'm looking here at post 2000 BAFTA and I'm looking at the original screenplay category and I'm trying to find a time where a sole WGA winner, if it didn't win a Critics' Choice Golden Globe or BAFTA, won. Gosford Park 2001 is listed here. and Milk 2008,
Which won the
and I
Oscar?
think that is it.
Did Gosford Park win the Oscar? I can't remember.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, okay.
Gosford Park and Milk
And
are the
Milk, yeah.
only two examples of lone WGA wins. None of the other major precursors. But original screenplay though is complicated by the fact that Golden Globe has both original and adapted together,
Yeah.
though.
Yeah.
So if you take out Golden Globe and you just looked at Critics' Choice, WGA, and BAFTA, the most predictive stat, believe it or not, is actually CCA. CCA tends to get the original screenplay category the most. Oh man, I don't. This is the one category more so than director and actress where I'm like really, really twisting my brain in knots because conventional wisdom does say to go with Honora. It really does. And if Honora is winning Best Picture, it makes sense that if it wins four picture, director, actress, and screenplay,
Hmm.
that would be the most wins of the night.
Yep.
And we do see a lot of the times in a split year where no film is winning like too much, like all the films are winning like two or three at most. The best picture winner still ends up winning the most on the night. Even if it is a low amount, like four in this case, or three
Yes,
potentially
I
even
was gonna
like.
say three still makes sense. Even if Mikey
Mhm.
lost actress, it's still a very reasonable path for Honora to just pick up picture, director, screenplay. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, there's no world where Honora wins all four of Baker's nominations and he becomes the most awarded person on a
Okay,
ceremony.
I'm not predicting it. I wouldn't go so far as to say there's no world. I think it's very close to happening. I really
Hmm.
do. I
But is that
had
because you're
Honora.
hypothetically playing like 3D chess saying, well, if ACE had happened when it was supposed to happen and Honora won there in the comedy category, is that like where your brain is
No,
going?
no. It's the strength of Honora still in editing. The Conclave is still the leader in editing, no question.
It has to be.
But I could see a world in which Honora takes home editing as well. The thing that's honestly stopping me is just how little editing and picture go hand in hand. It's, in the last 20 years, it's only happened 7 times. So, that's the thing. Now, it's happened the last 2 years in a row that the Best Picture winner also won editing. But before that, I
Mhm.
think you have to go back to Argo for the picture winner to win editing. So that's the thing that's stopping me. But it has happened the last 2 years in a row. So, could this be a new streak of picture bringing editing along with it? Maybe, but I'm not predicting it.
Conclave winning editing with the Best Picture nomination, but then not actually winning Best Picture is really scary.
Why?
I because it
The
also
ed
is winning because it also is winning screenplay. Like, doesn't it feel weird to you that a film would win editing and screenplay and not win picture?
No, because of what I just said. Best Picture and Best Editing over the last 20 years have not crossed over very often.
I
Uh,
understand that part of it, but like the combination of screenplay and editing is like kind of like that's a little frightening, don't you think?
maybe. Hold on, we got to look at how often editing winners also win screenplay. I haven't.
I'm almost positive the last time it happened and didn't win picture was Witness in 1985.
Oof.
I'm almost positive that's the answer because I'm looking.
Uh,
Oh wait, I lied.
did Argo?
Traffic.
Did Argo didn't win screenplay, did it?
Yeah, it did. Did one adapted.
Oh well, but it won picture. Sorry, I
Yeah,
forgot what I was looking through. Um,
Traffic in 2000 was one.
okay.
All
Whew,
right, and then after that,
that's a long. That's
I guess
25
the Social
years.
Network is another one, 2010, and
Okay.
I think that's the last time it happened. I'm
I
almost
think you're right.
positive.
I think Social Network is the last time. You're right. You're right.
Yeah, but that was
Uh,
clearly the runner-up. So maybe that is the case here. Maybe Conclave is this year's Social Network
yeah.
too. Honora's the King's Speech.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah, that's fascinating. Look, you're right. I mean, we all had Conclave predicted for picture for what, months, you know?
Hmm.
So it makes
But
sense that it's this close.
that was assuming it would have won maybe PGA, which it didn't, you know?
Right.
This race started with Honora in the front runner
It did.
position, and this we've seen this happen before where something starts off as the front runner, but then other films come out and they dominate the conversation, and then that film goes away and then comes roaring back at the end. And it was like, well, it was that film all along. Like Spotlight did
Yeah,
that in
yeah.
2015. Um, to a
I
certain extent,
maintain I
yeah.
maintain Amelia Perez was probably going to win Best Picture had it
Mm,
not been for the tweets. Do you
I
agree?
agree.
Do you think it was going to win if the tweets hadn't come out?
I do. I think it would have
Yeah.
done really well at BAFTA,
Yeah.
and I fear that Jacques Audiard was actually really close in director.
Yes, I agree.
He could have been the DGA winner potentially. Like
Yeah.
I felt like it could have won editing at the time because it had a sound nomination. It is definitely the most editing in that category. So yeah, there was a path for it in my opinion, but yeah, that doesn't seem to be happening. What's very interesting now though is how international feature.
Yeah.
I now hear me out with this. No film has ever won CCA, Golden Globe, and BAFTA, had a Best Picture nomination on top of that, and lost international feature. It's never happened.
I don't see
So
why it would. I keep seeing people saying, I think I'm Still Here is going to beat Amelie Perez. I don't I don't think look, if you just are going off of your gut and
mhm,
saying, look, I just feel like the controversy is going to catch up to it right at this perfect moment and I'm Still Here will take over. Well, I can't argue with a gut feeling because
no,
anything's possible. But you cannot make a logical argument to me that that's going to happen. Like, there's no logic
no,
behind
there's
that at all.
no. It is purely vibes, and it
Yeah.
is gut intuition, and it's
Which can
also
happen, gut feelings can pan out sometimes, but
and it
I
is
just
also what voters are telling you. And I can tell you, in my very, very, very small sample size, voters are telling me that they caught up with I'm Still Here and they love it.
I understand that's the only piece of logic that gets you a little ways with me is that look, it was a surprise Best Picture nomination, has actress along with it, and so people are going to catch up with it more because it's a Best Picture nominee.
Hmm.
I get that. I believe that people are watching it more than they would have if I'm Still Here was not a Best Picture nominee.
Hmm.
I still don't think it's enough to surpass the film with the most nominations of the year, the most wins in this category of the year. So, yes, controversy could catch up. And maybe we just, maybe it's a delayed reaction. We just been haven't it was too late in the game for any of the awards bodies thus far. And, it'll finally happen at the Oscars. I just think we could have seen the reaction. Like, why did it still win BAFTA? Why did it still win CCA? Like, if anything, CCA would have had the quickest reaction, right? I mean, because voting
No,
was
no.
voting
I
closed?
Yeah, voting
Okay.
happened way too early. If
All right.
anything, BAFTA could have. Not saying it because the voting still, for those who turned in their ballots early, the controversy still had not happened yet. So
Sure.
BAFTA is like the place where it could have happened. And honestly, if it did, if I'm Still Here had won at BAFTA, I'd say, well, I have all the evidence I need.
Absolutely. Especially winning BAFTA. No disrespect BAFTA, but
Right.
that's not the first place that's going to respond to a racist controversy. Okay, so
Exactly.
so yeah, I 100%. If it had lost at BAFTA, that would have been huge. Um, yeah, I just don't. I can't bring myself to logic my way to it. Is there
The
a world in
only
which it
the only
loses? Yes, but I
Yes,
can't. I
and you
can't
know
do
what
it.
the precedent is? There's only one recent example with precedents for predicting this, and that is the 2018 was it? 2016 The Salesman, where it did
Hmm.
not have a single win from Critics' Choice, Golden Globe, or BAFTA, but outside circumstances propelled that to a win.
Sure.
That's really your only precedent. And now, if you want to predict I'm Still Here to win based on that and you think that this matters enough, go for it. I can tell you from my very, very small sample size of voters I've spoken to, they're predominantly going with I'm Still Here. But once again, There's 10,000 voting members. This film has 13 nominations. It clearly had support across all branches of the Academy. I have no doubt that some votes were pulled away
For
due to
sure.
the controversial tweets. The question you just need to ask yourself is, was it enough?
Hmm.
And forget about like all of the really passionate Brazilian supporters who were pushing for this movie online. Most voters are not online, so they're not
Hmm.
seeing this. The best thing that could have ever happened for I'm Still Here was getting the Best Picture nomination because then you know that voters are prioritizing it. Because there's one thing I've learned over the years talking to voters, it's they may not see all of the nominees across every single category, but they will make sure that they see the 10 films nominated for
Yeah,
Best Picture.
agreed.
And so if they see that and they like I'm Still Here more than Amelia Perez, there you go. But the nominations didn't tell that story initially. I mean, if I'm Still Here had gotten also an adapted screenplay nomination, maybe Walter
Hmm.
Sally's gotten for director, I'd say, hey, we have more to work with here potentially. But like you said, maybe this is just a weird case of the longer the season goes on, the longer things have time to change. I often think about the Everything Everywhere year and how if there was more time, could All Quiet on the Western Front not won Best Picture, but like could Edward Berger have gotten in for director and won that? You know?
100%. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like if given more time in a season, things can totally change, and that might be what we might see here. I just don't think
Yeah.
there's no statistical evidence to
Yeah.
say that you should bet against Amelia Perez.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, it's really cool that this is a first for us that we
Right.
are discussing two films nominated for Best Picture and International Feature. We had talked, I remember we talked about this like the last few years. We said this day is going to come and we're going to have to figure out which one is in the better position.
Yeah.
The thing, though, that made it initially easier, and I would argue is still making it easier, is that only one of those films has a director nomination or any
Hmm.
number of other nominations other than actress.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just does seem like my thought process that I have also applied to Zoe Saldana is what are voters going to pull their votes from? If thinking of voters who were going to vote for Amelia Perez in any number of categories,
Hmm.
where would they pull their votes out from after the Carla controversy? If they were going to vote for Best Actress, obviously you're going to pull your vote
Yeah.
from Carla, right? So that's easy. Are you going to punish Zoe Saldana for Carla's controversy? Some probably will. I'm sure she lost some votes, but I would imagine like getting yourself in the mindset of that voter who loves the film but doesn't want to reward it because of Carla's tweets. You're probably not going to pull your vote from Zoe Saldana.
No.
So the
If
question
anything,
is,
what I've found is I've found that most voters are having sympathy towards Zoe because none of this is
sure,
her fault.
exactly. So
So
the
it's
same
actually
thing
only
is
kind of strengthened her campaign, to be honest with you.
totally. So the same question goes to international feature.
Hmm.
Most people, even though the award doesn't officially go to Jacques Audiard, most people, think about it going to Jacques Audiard. So the question would be, are people going to want to reward Jacques in international feature, despite his own controversy, which has not gotten as much press, but is still there? I feel like that controversy, like his statements on the Spanish language and things like that, that I'm less convinced has really reached the Academy at large the way the Carlos controversy has. That's kind of why I think that it's not losing quite as many votes in international feature to make a difference. It can. Again, if somebody predicts it, I don't think that's a stupid prediction.
Hmm.
I just can't. I can't logic my way to it.
So most of the tech categories, BAFTA sewed up for us. Those
Yeah,
are all pretty much done. There's two more categories I want to discuss with you: animated feature and documentary feature.
I don't want to talk
Animated
about animated
feature.
feature. I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, come on, come on, come on. Animated feature. I really, really believe Wild Robot. The best case scenario for it would have been winning BAFTA, but the second case scenario for it would be losing BAFTA, but not to Flow, and that's what happened here. So I
So
don't think that
remember when I was
Flow.
talking about
Yeah.
vibes? Remember when I was
Hmm.
talking about just going off of vibes for international feature?
Yeah.
I've got some vibes. I've got some vibes about
Wow.
Flow. Look,
Wow.
I'm not. This isn't our final predictions podcast. We're recording that in 5 days, 6 days. So I've got time to solidify, work through my feelings. I
Hmm.
just got this feeling about Flow.
Yeah.
Again, I'm basically arguing the exact opposite of everything I was just saying in international feature. The logical path is Wild Robot, no question. That it won PGA, not BAFTA, it won PGA, CCA, won the Annie. Um, so it's got what it needs to win for sure. I just think Flo is doing everything right. The way that campaign has been the little campaign that could, and I don't want to discount the Golden Globe win. I think the Golden Globe win, it's the first televised awards of the season, and
Yeah.
it won on a huge stage. On a huge stage, people say that the Globes don't matter. They're wrong. They're
Hmm.
just wrong. Yes, there's not overlap between Globe voters and the Academy, but getting up on a stage and giving a speech shows you as a winner right when you need to be, right early in the season. And so Flo got that opportunity and Wild Robot didn't. And Wild Robot didn't even get a televised speech at BAFTA. So yes, they have a televised speech at CCA, but are
Right.
people, if you didn't watch the show live, are you looking up that speech or anything like that? So Flo has a big televised speech. It's
Hmm.
got a big campaign. It's got the international feature nomination. I really feel like it can do it, even though PGA went for Wild Robot. I don't know. So again, I admit I'm going off of gut feeling right now more than logic. I fully admit that, but I just can't shake this feeling that it's not over yet. I don't know. Where are you at with it?
I think I think two things. One, no film that's won just a Golden Globe and missed out on winning at the Critics' Choice in the PGA and the BAFTA has gone on to win. It's never happened. Wild Robot literally won at Critics' Choice, Annie, PGA. Yes, it did not win at BAFTA, but and if you want to look at last year of Boy and Heron, it winning both Globe and BAFTA, it showed that it had international support,
Agreed.
but it also had Hayao Miyazaki.
Hmm.
Flo, like, love Gintz. Gintz is awesome. He has also done such a great job of running his own campaign on social media to explain the process of the making of Flo and inspiring young filmmakers to maybe get Blender and make their own animated films. There's a lot of well-respected auteurs in the industry who have also backed Flo.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's any doubt that Wild Robot is more of a film that plays to the masses and the broader sensibilities of the Academy. Wild Robot also getting a sound nomination, pretty huge because we don't see animated films nowadays get those additional nominations since like the 2010s with Pixar. So yeah, it is still tough. I'm not going to deny that it is tough. Hell, I've even seen some people say, you know what, maybe Wallace and Gromit does actually just come up from behind after this BAFTA win, because Cars in 2006 won Critics' Choice Golden Globe Annie Awards, PGA, and Happy Feet won the BAFTA. So on a lone BAFTA win, Happy Feet was your animated feature winner. But like Brave, in another year where animated feature split between it and Wreck-It Ralph, Brave had Golden Globe and BAFTA.
Hmm.
The year of, I'm trying to think of Big Hero 6 winning, How to Train Your Dragon 2 and Lego Movie split the precursors, and Big Hero 6 did not have any of the major precursors heading in. So you can't really look to that year for
Yeah.
precedent. What we do see more so in these semi-split years is they go with the film that won at the most places,
Hmm.
you know? Like Encanto versus Mitchell's versus the Machines. Encanto had Golden Globe, PGA, and BAFTA, three major wins. Mitchell's had two with Critics' Choice and it won at Annie Awards. So the only year in recent memory where a film that had more of these major precursor wins and lost was last year with Spider-Verse and Boy and the Heron. Now you can make the argument too, Spider-Verse was a part two. There's obviously a part three coming along. They don't like sequels, right? There's all these other knocks you can hold against it in that regard. So yeah, man, I'm with Wild Robot at this point. If Flo does win, no. this is truly a new trendsetter, I think,
Yeah.
for the Academy that we need to take into consideration for future years. Then, stats be damned. It's just like it's a pattern at this point that the stats then don't matter, and it's more about the film that has that international appeal.
Yeah, that's the thing. I will probably, when we do our final predictions podcast, I'll probably come to my senses and go to the Wild Robot because I don't deny anything that you said. I have no arguments against anything that you said. Um, I can't shake the way in which the Academy has been moving more and more international.
Right.
Yes, Gintz is no Hayao Miyazaki. I think he will be, though, in future years, by the
Maybe.
way.
Yeah.
But he's no Hayao Miyazaki now. He's not like a name brand unto himself at this point.
Hmm.
But it does have an international feature nomination. Boy and the Heron
Yeah.
did not. Boy and the Heron is PG-13. Not that it was a very inappropriate animated film, but it was PG-13, a little less family friendly.
Yeah.
Flow is very family friendly. So it has things in its favor that point to a similar year from last
Hmm.
year, and you can even argue that had Wallace and Gromit been up against Boy and the Heron last year, I think Wallace and Gromit would have won the BAFTA,
Yeah.
and then Boy and the Heron probably still would have won the Oscar. That's who knows.
Oh.
That's
Oh.
speculation.
Oh. I don't know.
It's speculation, but I think that
Yeah.
that's where I'm going with my thinking is
Mm.
that losing BAFTA for both Wild Robot and Flow is more a consequence of the hometown hero of Wallace and
Hmm.
Gromit, less so lack of support for either film. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So I don't know. Again, I fully admit, have no. I'm not pretending that this isn't gut feeling. It is. It's where I'm at right now. But yeah, it's a tough one.
And then finally, documentary feature. I know we all want it to be No Overland. It should be No Overland. It no other film speaks more to the moment that we're living in right now than this one. However, it not having a single industry award heading into the Oscars is so concerning to me at this point. Now, you can easily just make the argument, hey, if Will and Harper or Superman were nominated somewhere, it makes sense that that's the one that would win. But because both of them are not nominated at Oscar, which one makes the most sense then for them to go with? That's good logic. I understand that. But Porcelain War did win the DGA. It is the only film heading into the Oscar that has a major industry win. Maybe No Overland wins the Spirit Award this weekend. It will have the Gotham and the Spirit Awards. Looking at the history of a film that won both Indie Spirit and Gotham and lost the Oscar, the examples include where is it? The Look of Silence in 2015 that won both of those. Amy, which won the Oscar, had Critics' Choice, it had PGA, it had BAFTA, it had ACE. These are all industry awards.
Hmm.
Then you flash forward to last year, even with Four Daughters, Indie Spirit, Gotham Awards. Four Daughters was up for the Oscar. What it lose to? It lost to 20 Days of Mariupol, the DGA winner and the BAFTA winner, industry awards. I know it's not like a huge haul for Porcelain War, but it does have an industry award. Like, this is casting so much doubt on this category. And then there's the big asterisks of it all, which is No Overland is a divisive film for those who obviously support the Jewish state of Israel and don't even want to watch the movie, don't know what the movie is about, don't care.
Hmm.
And so I think this is what can cost it votes. And it's very, very disheartening. I've talked to a lot of documentary filmmakers this year who are confident that No Overland is going to pull it off. But when you have 10,000 voting members of the Academy who are allowed to vote on that really does call into question.
Yeah, I agree. It is a very strange turn of events, losing so many industry awards. But I also want to acknowledge that, it wasn't nominated at PGA.
No.
So it didn't
And also, I don't think
lose.
it was eligible for DGA, if I remember correctly.
So that's the thing, if it's not eligible for DGA, didn't get a PGA nomination, losing BAFTA sucked, but it hasn't been included in so many of these races. And so
Mhm.
that's kind of why I'm able to rationalize away some of these, not all of these. So
I got here. It was not eligible for PGA because of the rule that foreign productions must have a U.S. distribution in their rules eligibility document, which No Overland does not have U.S. distribution, as we all well know. And it was not submitted for DGA due to an admin error on the
mm,
filmmaker's side. So BAFTA, this could all be once again like you said, like another giant asterisk. Like, had it
yeah,
been eligible, would it have pulled it off? Woulda, coulda, shoulda, sort of
yeah,
thing. The reality, though, is I think even with those supposed wins, I still would be incredibly nervous just given the subject matter of this film and
yeah.
how passionate some people are on this hot button issue.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. You're right. Like there will be people. A great remember Jonathan Glazer's speech last year, right?
Oh my God, yeah.
And people, signed things denouncing his speech. Ridiculous, but it happened, and so that's you do have to factor in all those people who signed that document who are voting members in the Academy are
Mhm.
not going to vote for No Other Land. Probably not even going to watch No Other Land. So that's a genuine factor. Is it enough of a factor to lose is the question we have to ask. Yes, Porcelain War won DGA, but it was in a place that a competition, not facing no other land.
Right.
I do think um, it's awful to talk about tragedy and genocide in the terms of winners and losers at the Oscars. So I hate that it sounds reductive, but I do think that Trump's horrible statements and plans to, ethnically cleanse the Palestinian people from Gaza and quote unquote own Gaza, that's horrific shit
Yes.
um, that even people who support the state of Israel are like, whoa, this is a little much.
Hmm.
So I really do think those sorts of statements help bode support for this documentary. So I don't know. It is a very tough race, but I do think I'm sticking with No Other Land, at least as of this moment. I'm sticking with No
Yeah.
Other Land based on those factors that even since the denunciation of his speech last year, I think the industry has shifted even more.
I agree.
Like the denunciation of his speech rallied more support for Palestinians, and
Mhm.
so I do think support has grown over the last year. So that's why I'm going with it. I think there's enough support for it, and I think that the political situation right now amplifies support for the film. So yes, it's concerning that it's lost, but that's what I'm going with for now.
My final question as we head into SAG Spirit Award weekend. Do you think Sean Baker wins Best Director at Spirit Awards, or do you think because Brady Corbet is the only nomination for the Brutalist in that director category, that all the Brutalist heads will throw their weight behind Corbet to win that category?
Yeah, I think Corbett's winning. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Now, does that
Uh,
change your mind about Oscar in any way then?
well, the overlap there is, if there is
There is
any
no,
overlap, there's
there
no
pretty much is
overlap.
no overlap. No, but I'm
So
just saying,
yeah,
like, would it be like any kind of a, you know, just give
no,
you any kind of a sense of things changing?
not for me. No. Now, best director, I think is close. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think that it's just as easy as, oh yeah, it's Sean Baker and done and done. Like, there's a world where Corbett wins the Oscar. I am predicting Baker because the DGA win. Like, if there was any place for Corbett to win, it would be like DGA. I would have expected this season to be flipped, to have Baker win, the Globe and CCA and other things, and then have Corbett win DGA. But it's been flipped. So. Um, yeah, Indie Spirits doesn't have really an effect on this at all for me, I don't think. Is there any part of you that's considering the shot of Corbet winning at the
Yes.
Oscars?
Yes. There is a shot. I need to stew on it just a little bit more. But it's a really, really tough call for sure. I mean, I think about a lot how that is such a big film for such a
Yes.
small budget.
It's exactly what Best Director has been awarding over the last decade.
Yeah,
You know, it's exactly what it is. Anora is not really what's been awarded by Best Director. That's why it's so confusing that Baker won DGA. It's
right.
really based on DGA. I would not, if Baker had lost DGA, even if Corbet hadn't won, I would not be predicting Baker to win DGA, period.
No,
I mean,
God,
to
no.
win Best Director.
No, I completely agree with you. I think that when I look at okay, so if I look at it from this perspective, right? If I look at Best Picture winners of recent years that did not win director, Argo, right?
Mhm.
Affleck wasn't nominated. He
Yeah.
would have won if he was nominated.
Yeah.
12 Years a Slave. This is a good example, right? The bigger movie, that was a more grander technical showcase, won out.
Hmm.
But Coran also cleaned up in director that year.
Right. Yeah.
Spotlight is a great example of the director not winning in the end, and they ended up going with the technical, movie of The Revenant, right? That also was the Best Actor winner.
Hmm.
That could be what we're seeing here play out again.
Yeah.
Moonlight, like you said before, La La Land, more of a technical showcase. The more I like break this down, the more it is pushing me to go with Corbet for all these reasons. But those director winners either cleaned up in the director race that year, winning more than just EGA. Man, it's tough. That's all I'm going to
Yeah,
say
with
is
with
that it's
with the
tough.
exception of Argo, like Argo's a weird scenario. Like
Mhm.
all of those directors who won instead of the Best Picture winner won DGA, you know?
Yeah,
So that's the weird thing. Like we said earlier in the show, like DGA is such a reliable predictor. It very rarely splits, you
yeah.
know. Yeah, when you have I'm trying to think of like a close
The Rob Marshall year is really the only
yeah,
year that you have to like go back to. That
and that was
was Rob
so
Marshall's
split. Yeah.
that was Rob Marshall's first film. It was the only prize that he won that season against Critics' Choice, Golden
Mhm.
Globe, DGA, and BAFTA.
But
They
those
ended up
all
going
had
with
different winners. All of those shows had different winners,
right, right.
which is similar to this year, not exactly the same since Corbet won BAFTA and Globe.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it was a very weird year. And Marshall, what?
We don't usually see this play out where there's different winners. And if there is, a lot of times, I mean, if there is, the winner usually then is either the BAFTA winner or the DGA winner.
Yeah.
And in the case of like last year, or no, 2 years ago with Everything Everywhere All at Once, Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert at least had CCA and DGA.
Hmm.
Spielberg had Globe, Berger had BAFTA. So it was split, but the Daniels had two wins,
Yeah. And
And
Corbet has two wins, Globe and
right,
BAFTA.
right.
Baker only has the one, but it's like the most important one. So
I just lean towards those other 2 years, as I mentioned before, where the CCA, Globe, and BAFTA winner couldn't defeat the DGA winner, whose film was also going on to win Best Picture.
yeah.
That's the precedent that I'm gonna probably lean towards in this scenario here. I also think about some things that I even said to Sean Baker like that night when he won, which is you've been doing this for like 30 years. You've never lost your spirit in terms of like working in DIY independent film scene, never compromised, and people finally woke up, to like how great, your films have been. I got a similar sense the year that Guillermo del Toro won or
Hmm.
Bong Joon-ho won,
Yeah.
even Nolan last year winning, where it's like the Academy recognizes that you've always done well. This is now just the right film at the right time to finally give you that moment of recognition.
Yeah, the thing though is Baker hasn't had the same career as any of those filmmakers you just mentioned, you know? His stuff has always been
Yes and
very
no.
indie. Like,
Well, I agree, but you have to admit that there's always been like there's a stellar body of work that has been building towards this moment.
yeah, but how many in the Academy have watched anything other than Florida Project? You know what I mean? Like, it's a pretty small as
Well, how
opposed
many
to
people have watched Vox Lux or Childhood of a Leader? I would
no,
ask,
I
Ben.
know no, I totally agree, but I think that the difference is Brady Corbet feels like the crowning of a new auteur,
Okay.
whereas Baker. is, I guess, awarding a career that hasn't been very big. That's why it's just strange to me. Corbet fits exactly the mold of what has been winning this category, both from who he is, actor, and the sort of film that he's made.
Hmm.
It just really fits everything. The only thing that throws me off is losing DGA, which is huge. That's a massive miss.
And there's no reason he should have lost
I
CCA.
completely agree. Yes,
There's
CCA
really no
loss is
reason.
weird. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I could probably be talked into switching to Corbet. I could be talked. Right now, I'm sticking with
I'll be
Baker.
honest with you. If Corbet wins the Spirit Award and Honora does so well at the Spirit Awards, winning, Picture and Mikey and so on and so forth, but it loses that category, I know it has no voter overlap, but it might just, I don't know, it might do something to my brain to
Yeah,
get me to switch.
Spirit Awards will have no effect on this decision at all because there's no overlap. There's no, voting's closed. There's nothing that impacts for me. But I could be convinced if somebody wants to, really push me over the edge. I'm close because let's play that out. Like, okay, Honora wins Best Picture, wins, let's say, Screenplay.
I think it would need to an actress if it's
Yeah, then it
losing
needs one
director in that
other. I
case.
agree. It needs one
Yeah.
other. So then so if Mikey wins SAG,
Hmm.
maybe that's the calculation I need in my brain for it to be like, okay, now it's going to win actress. So then it could be picture, actor, screenplay, and then Corbet wins director. Um,
Or it loses screenplay and it could be picture, director, actress. It's like this
yeah,
is the big question
yeah,
I asked earlier, which is like, does anyone know what Honora's win package is going to be? And I think depending on how you choose to predict this, that's going to make or break your Oscar pool this year.
yeah. That's the thing. Like, I think Honora winning 3 as opposed to 4 makes a lot of sense because this year has been so split. It's been
Hmm.
split between so many films. We hadn't known what was going to win picture until just 2 weeks ago. And so it's been all over the place. So it makes sense for this year to be so split. It makes sense for this to be a year with a picture director split. Like that makes perfect sense. So for it to just coalesce to Honora just winning most of the top categories, like I said at the top of the show, it kind of feels too easy. It feels too easy. It can happen. That's what I'm predicting at the moment, but it does feel too easy.
Then my final question before we go here. I know we just spent a lot of time talking about actress and the SAG outcome. Is there any SAG outcome that could convince you to switch from either Brody, Saldana, or Culkin?
I Zoe's Saldana and Culkin, no. Those are winning. Even if either one of them loses at SAG, I don't think that would
Culkin a
convince
little
me.
bit.
But like to who? That's the thing.
Norton's the only one that makes sense to me.
Maybe that's not even
Best Picture
happening.
nominee versus
Yeah,
a non-Best Picture nominee. We've seen this play out before. We've seen this
I
happen.
hear
You
you.
lose one of those televised. You don't do a sweep, which
I
which
hear
is
you. I
why
hear
which is
you.
why I think he is going to sweep. I think he's going to
Yeah,
sweep, and it'll be fine. Like
yeah.
I'm not
So that's
predicting.
that's not the thing
Yeah.
that I'm worried about. That's why I go to Best Actor is the only
Hmm.
thing. Now, if Chalamet wins actor at SAG, will
Hmm.
it sway me to change from Brody? I don't think so, but maybe. That's where I'm at. Like, I really think Brody's going to win. And even if Chalamet wins, I think Brody has the better sort of win package.
Hmm.
But, I do think back to Brendan Fraser, who did have CCA,
Yep.
whereas Brody has CCA this year. But I do think Chalamet winning SAG, winning the Hollywood Industry Award,
Hmm.
would do something for me. But I think I would probably still go to Brody. But it would be a much more of a race if Brody were to lose, for sure.
Post 2000 BAFTA, because remember, before that, the BAFTA awards were held after the Oscars.
Mhm.
Nobody has ever won Best Actor with just SAG and SAG alone. You
Yeah,
needed to win something else along the way. Like if Chalamet had won Globe or CCA and then also picked up SAG, I'd be like, oh, like that's really compelling. But once Brody now has three of the televised wins, even if it is to just Chalamet's one, I still think I'm going to have to predict Brody,
I agree.
regardless of what happens.
I agree. Would I be shocked for that stat to break? Not necessarily. Like that feels like a stat that will break one of these years.
Hmm.
But with as big as SAG is and as sort of populist as it can be, it's different. It's a different voting body than the Academy, and so that's why I think I'm inclined to agree with you.
I think The Brutalist in many ways is like There Will Be Blood, where it wins actor, attack, two, in this case with score. History looks back and maybe we say Brady Corbet should have been the director winner, but they put director with the film that they just liked more that
Hmm.
year. And No Country for Old Men in that year was also winning the Guild Awards left and right as well. So I think that's where we're heading with the whole Brutalist versus Honora debate. And yeah, I think that Brutalist will probably in time be regarded maybe on the level of something like There Will Be Blood. And Honora, I think Honora's legacy will be fine as a Best Picture winner. I really
I agree.
do. I don't think it's going to be hated. Um, if anything, it'll be like this really, really nice moment where Sean Baker got recognized, if anything.
Yeah, I agree. I think there are a few films that would win this year that would age really poorly as a winner, or people would overly hate it because it's the Best Picture winner. But
Hmm.
you're right. I don't see that as the case for Honora. I think people will respect that perfectly fine. And yeah, I think it had it been the front runner all season, people would be sick of it by now and be bashing it left and right, even more than they have.
Yeah,
So yeah, and the idea of Courbet losing this year, and it does kind of track with auteurs, right?
right.
Most auteurs, it takes you a long time to win that Oscar, and
Yeah.
so he's going to have a long career ahead of him. I hope him and Mona, and I think that they're going to make some really incredible films together, and Oscars will come along the way.
Yeah. Mona's got a new film coming out this year.
Absolutely, yeah,
Yeah.
very exciting.
All right. Well, Daniel, it'll be interesting. It'll be fun. Like we said, it may not influence our final predictions, although it might a little bit. But Spirit Awards and SAG this weekend, a couple other Guild Awards as well. That might change my tech predictions, but like I said earlier, it feels right to go with what the BAFTA winners are in those categories for this time being. But we'll be back with another one of these videos. I do want to make this more of a reoccurring thing on this channel where we kind of just like chime in with what's on our minds and how we're feeling about the race. Obviously, during the off season, we might do this a little bit more infrequently, but I think it's fun to just kind of check in with everyone and just give them a status update on where our minds are at.
It's good. It's good to talk through.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, just tell everyone that's listening right now where they can find you on the internet.
You can find me in all the places: Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, everything at HowatDK.
And you can find me at Next Best Picture. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening to us here on Next Best Picture's YouTube channel. And we will see you all next time.